privilege of doing his Q&A last year for the Brilliant Tar, and so it felt very fitting to be back here tonight.
I'm very, very happy to be here, and I'm kind of overwhelmed. I've seen the film 3 times now, and I snuck in the back, and then they said we had to, they tried to pull me out. They said you were here. I really wanted to stay to the end. It's just, I get something more from it every time I watch it, and I think it's a really, really incredible accomplishment, what you've done, and it's so dense. There's so many layers to this film that peel back, with repeat viewings. But I want to. These conversations are always too short, and there's a lot I'd like to cover, and hopefully I'll be able to get through some of it. Let me start with the phenomenon of your film. This summer, my wife and I were in Berlin the day it opened, and I remember the two of us trying to cross a major boulevard and being drowned in a tsunami of pink people, trampling each other to be the first in line for the first showing. Did you guys have any idea that I know there's tracking and all that, but did you have any idea the extent of the response to your film?
Well, no, not anything like what it was. It felt spontaneous. It felt kind of, it's obviously the hope for any movie, but I think particularly, Noah and I wrote this, and we started writing it in March of 2020, and we just had no idea if there was ever going to be movies again, or if people were going to gather, and there was such it was like making the craziest rocket ship we could think of, to maybe go to another dimension where it was possible. So it felt like, what was incredible about it was it felt like it was this spontaneous answering of some underground wish, and people were like, "We heard the call," and I was like, "Oh my God!" Like it made me really emotional. And I was in New York that weekend, and I felt the same thing. And I was going obsessively around to theaters and checking the volume level, as I'm sure you've done. It can drive you bananagrams, but I was just moved. It was moving, and it was totally beyond any of my wildest hopes. But it felt it made me feel sort of connected to everyone in a wonderful way.
Yeah, I can imagine. I think many people assume the decision to make this film was an easy one for you, but deciding to make a film is never easy, and I'm sure you must have had your doubts when you were first approached by Margot Robbie about taking this on. What was that like? You and Noah ultimately sit down and start talking, but I'm sure you had your reservations.
Yeah, for me also, like, the calls were coming from inside the house. Noah was like, "Why did you sign us up to do this? Like, what is gonna even be this movie?" And I just had some feeling. It's like it's any project when you're writing or starting out, or there's an edge of an idea. It's like there's something strange and inchoate and glowing that you kind of want to lean into, and some part of it that almost feels like the edge of a terrible idea is what makes it interesting. And I think that was definitely this feeling of like just starting to lean into like what is our very strange relationship with dolls, and then what is that we make dolls and then we get very angry at them, seem to be sort of strange relationship. And I think we also think of ourselves as, I mean, advanced in so many ways, and we are, but we also are mad at dolls. So it felt kind of, I don't know, medieval or ancient, and sort of this kind of dynamic we have. And so I started kind of exploring into that, and then I started, you know, it kind of comes together, seeing it and hearing it, and it just, and then Noah sort of joined me on that. And then there was a point when I originally didn't know if I was going to direct it, and then once we had the script cooked pretty well, I didn't think they'd ever let us make it, but if they did, I was like, I can't bear to let anyone else make this. But it was definitely a moment of, you know, starting out was like, I don't even know what like, where do we put the steering wheel?
Yeah, there must have been a real pleasure in just seeing how many eyes you could poke out, you know, right? I mean, because it does feel like it wouldn't be a typical situation where you would have, you know, some kind of IP, in this case a doll, that is connected with a company that would allow you to do the things that you guys have done. I mean, it's extraordinary.
No, I mean, really the whole time it was, you know, sometimes these things kind of unfold in a certain way where they're allowed to happen. I mean, I think a big part of it for us was, once we had the script, Margot was obviously the star, but also producer, and she really stood in front of it and was like, I want to do this one. And I believe in it. And then we were just very lucky. I mean, Mattel was actually really open and supportive and allowed us to do this, and trusted us with it. And I think with something like Barbie, where it's such a long, strange history, and there's so many moments where, you know, the doll, as what it represents, cut so many ways. I was like, there is no other way. We have to make it this. We have to not run away from the spikiness, but sort of allow that to be part of it, because otherwise it just feels like then I don't know what it is at all.
I read someplace that you had a phrase that you used on set: authentic artificiality. I wonder if you could talk about that a little bit. I mean, I think I know what you mean by that, but.
Actually, that phrase, authentic artificiality, or artificially authentic, but it was coined by David Heyman, who was another producer on the film, and I kept talking about, because I wanted to ground the look of the film, I mean, in kind of 1950s soundstage musicals, and I love them. I mean, I love Vincent Minnelli musicals and Painted Skies, and, you know, American in Paris and Brigadoon, and that sense of like expansiveness, but with a wall, like, and that there's a kind of horizon that's painted. And so that was something that I kept leaning into and wanting to make that be the thing that we were always trying to figure out. How would they have done it in 1959? And part of that was because that was when the doll was invented, so it felt like grounding it in that moment was correct. And also because toys are tactile, and making everything tactile, and making miniatures, and making these beautiful painted backdrops felt correct for what should feel like a toy box. But I kept saying about Painted Skies, I kept saying, it's really fake, which is a really nonsensical sentence, but it's really there. It's fake, and it's really there. And then David is British, and he said, I think you mean authentically artificial. I was like, well, yes, what he said about accent.
Other than the LA location shoot after she has her sort of existential crisis, the lion's share of the shooting obviously was done in London, and you took over 8 stages in